Hello, I'm Debbie Foreman. Welcome back to another episode of GapCast. This is our YouTube channel where we talk about the world of gaps. We do reactions to famous people and studious people that talk about gaps. And then we have another segment called GapTrax, which is where we show the hints and tricks of the framework that we use of what is being talked about. But today we have a special episode, a very special episode. We are bringing in one of our learners and from Brazil. I'm going to introduce her in a minute. And we're going to talk about what her journey was on. We're going to talk about her specific journey, okay, with GapTrax. But it's more than a journey with GapTrax because I've known Luciana since about 2018, and her journey began before that. And it began when we started working with neurolinguistics. So today I want you guys to do this. I'm going to speak in Portuguese for 1 second really quick, because we are bringing someone from Brazil and we want that Brazilian audience with us. Então, vocês do Brasil, hello Brasil, se vocês precisaram ver isso legendados, go to closed captions na função do YouTube, porque não será legendado aqui, será legendado por YouTube em português, tá? Ok. I would like to introduce Luciana. I'd like to see if we can bring her up together with us. And hi, Lu, welcome, and welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here today with us.
Hello, Debbie. Thank you for having me.
I'm looking at my notes because I just don't want to get the dates wrong. I know, because we took some notes, and I wanted to just try to introduce everybody to you. We met it was 2018. When you became the community builder at InDelta. I'd rather you tell the world about what InDelta is. Hi, Mark. Hi, Francisco. And how you got in there. Because you have a memory of the very first day that we met.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And from that day. But what I wanted to say is, the day I met Luciana and we met, we were the only two women in a sea. I'm talking about the big, huge Pacific Ocean of high-level, sea-level executive men. And then there were the two of us. And so it was really good to have that female support inside of very respectful men, very professional men. But we felt that there was the absence of the high-level, sea-level women at the time in there with us, okay? And so Luciana was a great support as the community builder there. Lou, take it from here. Tell us a little about who you are, how we met, what happened. Let's get a little bit of the background of your past so we can then brush it into where we're going.
All right. Well, I come from a middle-class family in Brazil. I was raised in São Paulo. When I was 18 years old, I received an invitation to become an exchange student in Canada. So that's where I got my English from. And that experience, of course, changed my entire life. And it's where I learned English. But more than that, it was where I first understood what it means to adapt, to connect across cultures, and to expand your worldview. So when I came back to Brazil, I joined Japan Airlines for 15 years as a flight attendant. And this time of my life shaped me profoundly. So it taught me resilience, leadership, emotional intelligence under pressure, and how to serve people with excellency and grace. So after aviation, I transitioned into the luxury retail market, working with imported flooring and high-end architectural projects, the supplies. So I supported architects in specifying premium materials for boutique stores, a very exclusive segment. So that phase strengthened my strategic thinking, attention to detail, and understanding of positioning and brand experience.
Okay, I want to stop right there. Stop right there. Middle class family, Canada, aviation, traveled the world. The big key word you said there was resilience.
Yes.
Tell me before we go further, because that resilience started to be built, but then you moved from one complete industry into a totally different industry, but you had
Yes.
a base skill set. So you had a skill set, and I'm going to call that highest skill that you've mentioned twice so far is resiliency. You became resilient. But then you
Yes.
started learning strategic thinking from a new job, from a new market. What is resiliency to you?
Well, resilience actually started after I experienced the September 11, the attacks. I was in New York City that day, that morning, and my flight was supposed to leave New York City back to São Paulo that day. So that the whole experience, I was the senior leader of my team we were in the hotel. We woke up through that sounds, and we were on the 42nd Avenue, 42nd Street at 42nd Street. And we woke up to that sound, and was the experience that the whole world knows. And that taught me that resilience, you have to choose sometimes to be very assertive, to choose whether you want to do the right thing, and everything that has to be done in order to survive. So I learned very early age. I was around 26 years old at the time. So this for me was the biggest resilience lesson I learned in life. And
And
it
you're
took.
talking about that today. It's because people that are watching this, they may be watching this a month from now, 3 months from now, 6 months from now. They might stumble across it. So for all
Mhm.
of you watching this, we are talking about this on the fifth day that the U.S. is bombing Iran.
On the fifth date, what? I couldn't.
That the United States and Israel are attacking Iran.
Oh, yes, 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 yes.
So you're talking about September 11th, and now we're right in the heat of the moment of another
Yes.
global heat up, where
Conflict. Yes.
resiliency with people around the world, people are losing their families, they're losing their homes, they're losing their jobs, the economies, they're stuck around the world, and right now resiliency is a big one. So I just wanted to pull that up as
Yes.
we're going on. But now you move going back from architecture, and then what happened? How did you get to Delta? How did we meet?
Okay. So after the last job that I mentioned, I moved into the startup world, the irresistible world of the startups. So that's when I joined in Delta Business Community that you mentioned, and then I met you for the first time. That was 2019 when I first met you. So for 5 years, I worked as a community builder and community manager for C-level entrepreneurs, like former executives, like you said, founders, startup founders, and that's where I truly became what I call connector, super connector, as Francisco and Mark would say. I developed the ability to identify synergies between businesses, connect the right people, and see opportunities where others might not. So, my journey has always been about people, leadership, and building bridges that create new possibilities. That's where I help create new opportunities through strategic networking. So, today, I am the CCO of PeopleX, a company specialized in strategic HR outsourcing, payroll processing, and people management solutions, helping organizations structure, optimize, and scale their HR options. That's pretty
So,
much.
with all this said, you've grown, 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 grown. But did you believe in yourself?
Most of the time, yes. But I have to tell you, it takes courage. You have to let go from the ego. Ego is your worst enemy ever. So this connects with the resilience that I said earlier. So when you are willing to let go of the ego, you open a whole new world of opportunities to learn, to grow, to excel at everything you put your mind into it. So I went from aviation to architectural and engineering projects, and then startup world to business community. So it was a very long, a very complex journey that I enjoy switching from time to time since I feel connect to my purpose. I like connecting people. That's the bottom
So I'm going to
line.
go back. What was the first thing? Because you told me this when we were talking the other day, and I want to connect it because I have a list of questions I want to ask you. Okay. So the first one is you said that there was something that stuck in your mind the very first day we met when you asked me what I did. What was that?
Yeah, you said the very first conversation that we had was you said to me, I asked what you did at the time. I said, what do you do? Um, the connecting to in Delta and how can I understand to connect to other people? And then you said, I work with intangibles. And then it struck me for years, I have to say. Uh, what does she mean by that? She provides service? Is she a mentor? Is she a consultant? What does she mean by that? But you had to go to a meeting, so we didn't have enough time to speak through it. So, and then it struck with me, and then after a long while, and then I said, what did you mean by it? What do you really do? And then you said, I transform intangibles to tangibles. And I said, oh my gosh, and then how? And then you started to explain it to me. And it was very different than when I spoke to other people, to other C-levels, entrepreneurs, and nobody had anything like that. So you brought a very different outlook in my community, in the business community. So
So then here it goes. Okay. We went through COVID, we went through this. I left Brazil, I moved to the States, and blah blah blah. And you switched jobs and growing and changing. Okay, and then we launched GapTrax here in the United States, and you're like, I want. Now I'm going to ask you, what made you want it? What was the struggle? And then we're going to go through the journey.
okay. Well, it wasn't a moment of crisis, it was a moment of friction. It wasn't curiosity, it was friction. So I was operating at a high level, working with executives, managing complexity, but internally I sensed fragmentation. I can put it that way. So there was effort, but not always proportional impact. I wasn't looking for motivation, I was looking for structure. So GapTrax felt, after you explained it to me, GapTrax felt like a system that could help me diagnose, not just cope, you know? So I was in a moment where I felt intellectually capable, yet internally fragmented. So I was solving problems, but not always at the root. So there was a clear misalignment between effort and impact. So GapTrax attracted me because it promised structure, not inspiration. So at that stage, structure was what I needed, and I got it.
Structure. Okay. You say fragmentation. So you had this internal feeling that you were fragmented inside. There were so many pieces, and you were having a hard time organizing each of these pieces. Is that correct? Inside of
Yes,
you?
yes.
Okay. And the second part that you brought up is the question of impact. Okay. So I'm just going to read through I don't want to lose track so we can follow in order here. Um, at one point you mentioned how strong the framework is in comparison to content, the difference between a framework and content. And
Mm-hmm.
you told me something on a call once, and I actually wrote this down. You said content informs, framework transforms. Content
Exactly.
informs, framework transforms. Can you explain what that was for you in that journey?
Yes, what struck me to say those two phrases to you was that GapTrax doesn't just give ideas, it organizes perception. So it provided architecture for thoughts I already had, but I couldn't sequence coherently. I had insights, intuition, experience, but they weren't sequenced. So the framework created cognitive architecture, if I can say it that way, and if that makes sense. So it turned mental noise into structural clarity. So it helped me move from scattered awareness to systemic clarity. And that was mind blowing. And that was so powerful. And the difference is profound.
Profound how?
Because when you see, I always, in Brazil, we always say that the obvious must be stated. So when you see what's obvious, usually what is obvious, at least in my case, it's very profound. But if you don't know that it's there, if somebody does not state this to you, you still, if you don't stop and try to see and try to get to know deep what through a methodology that you have this, you just need to know how to structure it to seek clarity. Then it's a, do you know when you go to a doctor because other doctors they,
I was at the doctor this morning, so I've got doctor coming out of my
yeah,
existence today.
because
Now, tell me.
sometimes you go to the doctor and they don't know, you go to three, four doctors and they don't know what you have. But you go to another one that finally structures what you have, goes to a very deep diagnosis, and then you feel relieved because, okay, you're sick, but at least you know what you have. You are able to do the treatment, the correct treatment, the appropriate treatment. So, um, that's what I mean with the profound, because then I could dive into myself.
Because you said twice so far that diagnose. So when you go to the doctor, like they'll take lab exams or images or whatever, and they'll come with a diagnosis because that's an
Mhm.
exact science.
Yes.
But when you're saying that you're went through a diagnostic process, I'm not the one, or my team or my company, we're not diagnosing you.
No,
Who's
but you
diagnosing you?
provided the tools for me to diagnose myself.
Aha. Okay. And so when you go through a diagnosis can only be considered accurate if we're able to provide evidence, right?
Exactly.
Which is when we take, and now we're going back to that very first day we met, we take the intangible, we turn it into a tangible, because you have tangible evidence that the framework worked because it's going to change something in you. And that brings me to my next question is, what changed in your mindset?
Well, it shifted me from self judgment to structural analysis. So I realized many of the problems I internalized were not personal failures, they were alignment gaps. So between strategy and execution. So it was between intention and process. So between people and purpose. That reframing removes emotional noise and replaces it with this diagnosis. That
You said people and purpose, which gets me because to the four P's, which is one of the frameworks that we work on, which is,
Mhm.
you have the purposes up here, the people that are connected to your purpose. I can pull that up in a sec. You guys, for the editors, can you guys put the 4P chart right in at this moment when we edit this so people that are watching this can see what we're talking about. But you got purpose, you got people, and it's like a compass. And then you got the path and you've got the process.
Yes.
And in the middle of that, you've got the clarity, that target where you're going to go. And we work through it through awareness and preparedness and readiness and evidence. Because when you're able to go through that process, you're going to pull up the evidence. But I don't want to get too much into the frameworks right now, because what I do want to do is that you've talked about the evidence, you've talked about the mindset, you've talked about the clarity, the alignment. And I'm going to ask you, of all of the frameworks, of all of the assignments, of all of the work that you did, which one hit you the hardest?
Uh, the beginning, the very first one.
The
To
very
to
first one?
yeah, because when you start to the process of getting to know yourself through a methodology, the first step is always the hardest part. And for me, it was, how can I put it? For me, to let go of the ego was a very hard. I didn't even know that I had that big of an ego. So it was like crushing. I was, confronting myself. And the first one was the hardest part because it took me like 3 days for me to come up with an adjective and a noun. So
Oh, for the
and a
purpose. We're
verb.
starting with the purpose. Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
So what the frame, what the framework taught me was to ask a different question. Where is the misalignment between strategy or execution, between tools and people, between purpose or process? So that shift removes emotional heaviness. So it replaces blame with what brings you to get to know your gaps. So you can really have this clarity. So that was the hardest part in the beginning, the very beginning, the very first assignment. So,
And then you told me at some given moment that the one that really shifted how you work from here on out, how you approach life, was the impact chart. And I asked you if you can show us a little bit of that. Can you tell us about your journey with the purpose and impact?
you mean the journey about the assignments?
Yeah, the assignment, well, and what it's well, not the you did the assignment, but by doing such,
Mm-hmm.
what how has that changed your life?
Well, it changed. It made me see that clarity often begins by stating what I had in my. It was not a lack of knowledge, It wasn't. I was the type of person that was in a looping that was input, 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 and it wasn't like
Task,
that.
task, 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 input, input,
Task,
input.
task, task, input, input, input. So I was in this big looping and I couldn't get out of this looping. So it was very, I reached my freedom, I can say. So, and
Can you
again,
explain to everybody that's watching? Can you show everybody and then explain to them what this is and how it's changed your life? So
okay.
it's backwards because we've got the mirrored image. But what we're talking about is getting to the final impact. You told me that this process,
Mhm.
tell me what happened to you with this process.
What happened to me was, since I thought it was very weird at the beginning, when you said in one of the episode on this episode to start from the back, like to switch. So we have input and to separate the objective to the subjective was very, very demanding of my of my research, internal research. I had to research. I had to turn my brain upside down to get the right answers. And what made the most difference on this assignment specifically was consistent impact through intentional integration of knowledge and action brings sustainable results that generated with clarity, focus, and emotional balance.
Break that down. Explain it. Intentional impact.
Okay, going from the end to the begin, from the right to the left. Okay, I found out that through all this methodology that impact, if you go consistent impact, I didn't know, and again, the obvious must be stated, I didn't know that I had to be more intentional because I wasn't able to integrate because I didn't know I had to be intentional about it. It was automatic. I didn't know, so it made me to take one step back and then to realize all this, that intentional integration before action. So before action, I have to be intentional, and I wasn't at all being intentional.
So are you able today to, whatever you're doing, before you go and do something, you sit down, and it can be in the snap of a thing. Do you say, I wonder what that, I need to know what that impact is. I'm going to define the impact before I start any process. Do you do that, or do you do it just for big things?
No. I do for everything, even my personal life, even in the smallest things. It took me a while to practice, to be more fluid, to be more, it's like a new habit. Once you
So
learn
now
the
you see
goal,
something, go, I'm going to do something, it has to have an impact. What is that
yes,
impact? And that impact has to be aligned to what?
to the purpose.
Purpose. So you defined your purpose. And then you look at it and go, I need to know that I'm going to make an impact. Now that you know how to do this,
Mm-hmm.
do you believe that everything you're going to do in your life is going to have a different impact than if you didn't
Absolutely.
know that? Okay,
Absolutely,
that's
because
one.
it changes your perspective, because you reverse the engineering process.
So here's my question. What
Okay.
difference, what impact, what difference are you going to make in the world now because you know how to do this than if you hadn't been able to, if you hadn't learned to do this?
What I will do differently?
But what impact in the world? How are you going to make your mark? What impact are you going to be able to leave now because you've learned this? And if you had not learned this, where would you be? Where's that?
I would still be confusing, stressed, burned out. So my mark in the world, to the world, is going to be, if I do this and I can inspire others to do the same, it's a very powerful little seed that I, as a leader, am going to plant. I'm going to seed, and then to make a better tomorrow, because I see that many people on my team, they have also the same kind of difficulties, because we self-blame. And this is my most valuable.
I didn't get the result. I didn't do it. If I were
Yes,
better, if I could do this, if I should,
exactly.
if somebody's better than me, the world's collapsing and I didn't know, and
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 competition, and
I'm too young, I'm
competition, and
too old, I'm
competition.
too white, I'm too woman, I'm too this, and all that self-talk, that self-blame, right?
Yes.
Has that left you?
Yeah, that has left me. Absolutely. Absolutely. It took me a little while. I would say maybe around 3 to 4 months to be completely fluid, to feel more natural, to act like this. It's like a new habit. You want to drink more water, you have to take some time to be more automatic. So Um, that was my tipping point.
Let
So
me ask you a question. You said you were applying this even into your personal life, the impact. I remember you like sweets. I remember you have a sweet tooth. I remember that it's hard for you to go away. Anything you're in a padaria, you want to get something. Do
yes,
you actually go before you eat a sweet now? What's that impact?
yeah.
Or do you
Well,
just
it's
grab
going
the
to
sweet, or is it
destroy
just too
my
good?
diet. So yes,
Yes.
so absolutely, that's what I meant. It's life changing in every aspect. So it's not just for work, not just for studying, not just for a small or big project. No, it's a new lifestyle. I can put it that way. It's a new lifestyle.
You used to, I'm assuming, I don't know because you never said this. I am assuming that you used to see problems as problems, but you made a comment recently that now you see problems as opportunities. How does that work?
Yeah, well, not automatically. A
Hmm.
problem only becomes an opportunity when it's correctly identified. So, in my work today, especially engaging with C levels, executives, I see organizations reacting to symptoms, turnover, inefficiency, slow growth. But often the real issue is structural misalignment. So, GapTrax trained me to pause before reacting. Instead of asking, how do we fix this? I ask, where exactly is the gap? So that pause changes the quality of intervention. One of my biggest takeaways on this was learning not to react to symptoms. So GapTrax forces you to pause and ask, where exactly is the gap? That pause alone changes the quality of decisions. So in my work at PeopleX, I constantly see organizations trying to optimize processes without revisiting purpose alignment. So what this framework reinforced for me was that operational efficiency without directional clarity simply scales confusion. So alignment must precede execution. So it's
And how did you
strength.
learn to do the alignment?
I'm sorry?
How did you learn to do the alignment?
A lot of exercise. I have to write down. That was something I also didn't do before. You have to write down, uh, take a step back to think outside the box, and then look from another angle, from another perspective, and then we are able to see a new alignment. You see new ways, new possibilities.
So
So,
you've gone through these dynamics, all of them. You went through the whole thing. Did
mhm.
you ever go back and say, wait a minute, I'm going to go back because I want to see if it realigns or if I'm misaligned and do go back to the beginning, go back to the middle, do something, reapply it? How have you used these frameworks for reapplication in different scenarios?
Yes, I did. I did. I work on the sales area, so I work in a commercial area. So I used it from the prospect point of view, for our already clients, and for clients that are not with us anymore, but are willing to come back to us. So this is in my work. If we're speaking about work, this is working very well. Yes, I went back and forth. Even the GapTrax. It's interesting sometimes to go back to a certain episode, and then you have a new whole outlook, a new whole outcome. That's very interesting because sometimes I thought I sensed some clarity misalignment gap, but then when I return it, thinking more structure and rethinking again, sometimes it's not only that, you have to take more elements to it in order to go forward. So,
I've got two more questions for you because I know
okay.
we're on 37 minutes already here. Not that I could go on for hours with you, but we just want to make sure that everybody that's watching this can watch through to the end and they get a lot of takeaways and stuff like that. Um, I wanted to see if you can put together the integration human factor. What is the biggest takeaway, and what did you feel that we truly delivered? So other people, if you're going to tell everybody, what would be the message? Like if somebody's watching this right now, and hello, everybody out there watching this, we want you to watch it. We want you to be curious. We want you to understand. Um, and it's really frustrating for me, very frustrating, that none of this is taught in school. You
Yes,
do not learn this in school. And then you get to the workplace and you're expected to know this, but in the workplace, nobody teaches this. And the only way that we have to teach this is through either like GapTrax online for individuals, but through corporations, working in school districts. But if the whole planet had access to being able to do this from, I'd say middle school on, we'd have a much less we'd have less anxiety, less depression, we'd have higher
exactly.
results, more relief, people would have more free time, they'd have more clarity, they'd have more flexibility, more resilience, which you said from the beginning. When a problem arises, transitions would be easier, transformation would be easier. But now, you know, I'm 57 years old. Imagine like it's harder and harder and harder the older you get. You did this a little bit younger, but if we started this younger, so it doesn't matter, you guys, if you're 15 years old or 90 years old and you're watching this, if you feel like you want to close these gaps that are hindering your progress, if you feel like you were born for a purpose and that you want to make an impact in the world, in your family, in your community, but most of all, you want to leave that impact legacy with yourself, the framework is there, but from my mouth to whatever, it's me just repeating myself for 35 years. So I'm asking you, Lou, for all the people that are out there watching, how how would you tell them, or what would you tell them that 5, 6, 7, 8 hours of coursework would, what is that? What happens?
I would say to them, that is a very one thing I've realized is that most of us are not overwhelmed by complexity. We are overwhelmed by unstructured complexity. So what GapTrax offers is not simplification.
Mm-mm.
It offers organization. And when chaos is organized, clarity emerges. And when clarity emerges, performance stabilizes. So that to me is the real value. So
Can you repeat that? When chaos is organized,
when chaos is organized, clarity emerges.
so chaos, everything's chaotic, and through the framework, you were able to organize this chaos. Everything's it's coming out, and
Yes.
framework organizes it, and then you become into structural clarity. Is that
Yeah,
it?
clarity emerges. So
It
this
just
is why, yeah. And when clarity emerges, the everyday performance stabilize.
how
Because
do
I've
people see you differently? How do people see you differently because you've been able you started in the beginning talking about friction, internal friction, not knowing how to create the impact, perception, mindset, and now you're talking about turning chaos into clarity. How do you feel people see and perceive you differently?
Well, people see me with no more anxiety that I have to deliver results. No, I stepped out of this looping. So I stopped, felt anxious. I stopped feeling um, that I had not enough time to do everything that I had to do. So people see me more calm, more with a sense of structure. So
Has that opened more doors or closed more doors?
no, open more doors, even more meetings, even the prospects are more open to see it. It's not that the prospects were seeing me as an anxious. I don't think that was the case. But as long as I had now structure to organize all this chaos, clarity to make better decisions, and better decisions changes everything, and language to understand where the real gap actually is without self-blaming. So less reaction, more intention. So less self-blame and more strategy.
Has your
So
self-talk changed? The way you talk to yourself changed?
oh yes, yes. I don't put that kind of pressure. If it's not, if I don't have clarity, I will not stress it. If I don't have time to organize the a specific chaos, then I will not stress. I will not stress it because now I have a methodology to go through it, and I know it's going to be all right. And I know it's going to function. I know it's going to put me forward. So gaps are rarely about the lack of effort or capability. They come from the lack of coherence around impact. So you have to see from the impact point of view in order to start. So be much more successful. So in my case, I realized my core gap wasn't competition or strategy. It was qualification showing up as stagnation and results that weren't proportional to the level of experience I had. So not because I didn't know enough, but because I hadn't clearly defined the impact I was driving towards. So GapTrax helped me see that integration is the real turning point. Integrating knowledge, experience, emotions, and execution intentionally instead of adding more inputs. So once the impact became clear, decisions became lighter and the sense of stagnation disappeared. I was stressing because I felt stagnated without being stagnated. So that's what I meant, that I felt fragmented inside at the beginning of our conversation. So understanding that clarity of impact is what turns complexity into coherence. So realizing that gaps are multidimensional, and that's exactly why they need a method. No more, not more effort. They need more method. They need a method and not more effort. That was life-changing, I have to say.
What I wanted to do, Lou, as a closing statement, I just want to say, great conversation, open mic, open mic. What do you have to say? Say to the world, say to yourself, say to us, say to open mic. What do you have to say?
Okay, if I had to summarize my experience with GapTrax, I would say this. It didn't give me answers, it refined how I think. So it trained me to distinguish between noise and structure, between reaction and intentional movement. So it helped me understand that many of the problems we face are not personal deficiencies, but misalignments within systems. So whether internal or organizational. So what stayed with me most is this: clarity is not accidental, it is designed.
Intentional or designed and intentional. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And once you learn how to design clarity through purpose, alignment, impact, and pathway, you don't just solve gaps, you prevent them from expanding. So that shift changes how you operate in business, relationships, and decision making. And that's lasting. So, what I find compelling about this framework is that it treats purpose as directional intelligence rather than motivation. So I think one of the dangers in modern productivity culture is action without structural alignment. So, and in this model addresses that gap directly. It was a lifesaver with the whole structure behind it. So, what GapTrax does well is move from conceptual awareness to operational coherence, and that transition is where most people struggle. So that's what I'd like to say.
So instead of taking an anxiety pill or being treated for anxiety or being treated for depression or having to go get drunk or to watch and stay on your phone, you feel like if people were taught this through life and these were skills that were acquired, we'd have much more efficient society without self-talk, without self-blame, and just with a sense of relief.
Yeah, and it becomes a whole new lifestyle. I can really say that. It's a new lifestyle because you feel much lighter, even though the complexities will always be there. We will always have to face, but to face in a different perspective. And this perspective alone is the tipping point, is life-changing.
Lou, it's emotional. A lot of times when we work with, let's say, organizations or schools or something like that, or workshops or something, or a keynote, or you're in the audience or whatever it is, I don't get that individual feedback that you've just given us. We can say, oh, we changed the system, we changed an organization, we've changed it, and then you'll get an organizational input. But you guys just heard from an individual that has put in the work, because you have to put in the work. This doesn't just happen, you have to put in the work. But once you put in the work, and it's not that long of a time, I'm able to see in you, you just see the difference. You hear the difference. You feel the difference. And to me, in my field of work, I guess it's one of the, it's like I have to hold the tears back right now. Because when we see that there's somebody's life has changed, but not just yours, but now you're able to bring that into your organization, you're able to bring that into your relationships. As a matter of fact, last question I'm going to ask. A lot of times when we go through this process, friendships change, relationships change, because you realize that a lot of the relationships, whether they're family, friends, community, you start to realize that they're anchoring you into the same process that you were already in, and that's part of the problem of getting out, that stagnation. So my question, do you have recent new ex relationships, and do you have new relationships, whatever it is, work, family, community, whatever?
Yes, I do. And I have to say that I'm dealing a lot better. I'm a more calm person. I still go through struggles, but I deal with them differently. So this is what I mean by new lifestyle. It was a major lifestyle changing, because you will not stop having problems. You're not going to stop having complexity, problems in relationship with my family and my health, but you can deal with it from a whole new perspective with a method. That's what I mentioned when I said it's multidimensional. Once you understand that and you see that and it really sinks in, you can take everything, put it into practice with the methodology, and then it's going to change it. And after you change it, you will. I revisited the GapTrax 3 times already since the first time I've done it. And every time I have a new surprise, because every time it refines a little more. The first one was a big refinement, but as long as you deal with new things every day, we have a war going on right now. So the world changes. The daily life changes. So innovation is part of life. You have to deal with it. But when you have the peace, it brought me peace. When you have peace to deal with it, you become unstoppable. You become like,
That's what I like. Unstoppable when we become unstoppable. I am going to stop this interview right now because you just closed it with Chave de Ouro. Go Brasil. Chave de Ouro com unstoppable. Sorry. Couldn't resist. Had to do it. Google Translate if you didn't get it. All right. So I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for your words. We're going to have you on again as we advance. I've got a little surprise. We are launching here in the United States on May 2nd, a legacy by design for women.
wow.
Okay, don't know how we're going to get you because you're in Brazil, but I think we can maybe talk about bringing this to Brazil. Legacy by design for women in Brazil. October, November, let's see if we can hit the target. All right. But I would like you to lead us into bringing that into Brazil because you've grasped it, you've got it, you've absorbed it, and if you're open, I'm not offering her a full-time job. I'm just offering her to lead it so your employer doesn't get to you. Okay, we got it. All right, Lou, thank you very much for being here.
Thank
It
you
was a
for having
pleasure,
me.
and I look forward to having you the next time.
And thank you for all this methodology that brought me peace after so many years.
I'm glad.
I am finally at peace with my daily life.
I'm glad, Lou. I'm very glad, and I'm in tears.
Me
Thank
too.
you. To all you viewers, I'd like to thank you very much for being here. It was a wonderful conversation with Luciana. Join us at GapTrax. Join us on Legacy by Design. Join us on Instagram. Join us here on the YouTube channel. If you want access to the course, if you have questions about the frameworks, just comment and we are going to, I will take the time. I will go through it all because I would like to see the world at peace like Luciana is. And once again, thank you for joining us at GapCast.